Well, our next guest says the hurricane has caused unimaginable damage in Grenada. We're joined now by the Prime Minister of that country, Dickon. He joins us from St. George, Grenada. Prime Minister, thanks for being here. I know that you have been touring, you've been very busy surveying the damage across Grenada, so we appreciate you taking a couple of minutes to talk with us here on Canada Tonight. Tell me about the situation now, particularly in Carriacou, because we understand that roughly 95% of roofs there have been completely ripped off, and there's a lot of damage.
Yes, there is. Right, are you hearing me?
Prime Minister, can you hear us?
Okay, good. Yes, so thank you for having me on. And the damage to the northern part of Grenada has been substantial. There's been severe damage to housing, severe damage to agriculture. On the two small islands of Carriacou and Petite Martinique, the damage is almost complete. It's devastating. That's the only way to describe it. Complete destruction of the electric grid, complete destruction of the communication system, complete destruction of agriculture, the environment or mangroves, and complete destruction of housing, public buildings, health infrastructure, police infrastructure, port, airport, all severely impacted. So in the case of Carriacou and Petite Martinique, we're actually talking about complete devastation. So it's really a grim picture, and it is obviously quite a challenging time because there's no electricity, very limited communication, and water is still not back to, and it will not be back at least for another 2 weeks, based on the initial assessment that we have.
Okay, so those two islands completely devastated. We're looking at pictures of Carriacou right now and some of the destruction. It is unbelievable. What is your government doing to help the people on those two islands right now?
All right, so right now the focus is on relief effort. We are providing food, we are providing water, we are providing tarpaulins, basic necessities, generators, just to make sure that our residents are comfortable. We will have a relief surge this weekend. Many volunteers from Grenada will go up to assist with ensuring that we can deliver and continue to deliver food, sanitation and hygiene kits, tarpaulins, and other basic necessities throughout the length and breadth of the islands. That we expect will continue for a significant and prolonged period of time because of the level of destruction. After we get to that, the next stage will then be cleanup because the roadways were filled with debris, fallen power lines, fallen communication lines, zinc and galvanized sheeting, lumber, etc. So stage 2 would be cleanup, and obviously the medium-term stage 3 will be rebuilding. But that obviously will take some time. So for now, our main focus is on relief and ensuring that our citizens are made as comfortable as possible. I have to point out to you that we are only at the start of the Atlantic hurricane season. So with many of our citizens being homeless, roofless, it is a major challenge because it means just normal things like rainfall becomes a bit of a nightmare because you essentially have nowhere to go, or you are going to get wet with rainfall, or you have to suffer extreme heat because it's the summer season as well. So focus on ensuring that we can start to repair some of the shelters and larger buildings that will be used as community shelters will also be part of our focus. But it is going to be difficult, no doubt, but we are committed to doing so.
And Prime Minister, we saw that our Minister of International Development, Ahmed Hussein, put out on social media a short time ago that Canadian aid is on the ground in the Caribbean. Have you been in touch with the Canadian government? Is there international aid on the ground there right now from Canada, from the Red Cross and other partners?
Yes, so I've been in touch with the minister. We spoke on Wednesday afternoon while I was touring one of the devastated villages in the north of the island. He indicated that the Canadian government had pledged initially $1 million as an initial reaction to the hurricane. We know normally they will coordinate with some of our regional partners through CDEMA, which is a Caribbean regional response agency for disaster management in the region. We anticipate that we will continue to speak with the minister and the Canadian government to unlock more assistance, both in the relief and the rebuilding effort. Myself and other prime ministers who are affected are meeting tomorrow afternoon, and after that, we expect to have deeper engagement with the international community, including Canada.
You know, there are people around the world, including in this country, still missing for loved ones. What should their next steps be? What's your advice to them?
Right. So I think in the case of Grenada, if you have not been able to contact a loved one, you can certainly contact the National Disaster Management Agency here or any government agency, and you can give us the name of your loved one and their last address, and we can certainly help to find them. I would say in Grenada, that should be quite easy. Communication is pretty much back in most of the island. Power is restored to about 80% of the island. Carriacou and PT Martinique, it's a little more challenging because there is no power, and communication to a large extent is still down. But travel between the islands are resuming. We can go by boat. We are going by small planes during the daytime. So once we have the name of the persons, we can certainly assist. So they can contact any government ministry in Grenada or the National Disaster Management Agency, and we'll certainly help you locate your loved ones. I mean, I would say we do not have any missing persons reports. So I think we're pretty confident that it's just a question of locating and communicating with the persons.
And how long, and this might be a difficult question to answer at this point, but how long do you think it will take for Grenada to recover from this? And also, is there anything that your country needs right now from the international community?
Well, I think we certainly need cash, to put it simple, to pay for the relief effort at a minimum, and we will need tons of cash to pay for the rebuilding effort. In the case of Carriacou and PT Martinique, we're talking complete and total devastation. So we have to rebuild, and not just rebuild, but rebuild in a manner that is resilient and sustainable. If we are going to get Hurricane Category 4 and 5 storms right at the beginning of the Atlantic season in July, when the summer is just starting at the end of June, and if they're going to cause this level of destruction, I don't think there's any doubt that the warming of our oceans is fueling the ferocity of those storms and is creating havoc and putting our lives and our livelihoods, our actual civilization, our very existence into jeopardy. It can't be right that we are asked to pay for these things repeatedly and rebuild every 5 or 10 years when these storms come. So we certainly need significant financial support. And I'm not talking here about loans. I'm talking grant funding. Because as I've said in previous interviews, this is about climate justice. This is about the reality that the warming of the oceans and the warming of the atmosphere is not done by small island developing states like Grenada or any of the Grenadine islands that have been devastated. They're done by the large industrialized countries who created their economies based on fossil fuels, became wealthy off of it, continue to remain wealthy, continue to, in fact, pollute. They are not adhering to the 1.5 degrees Celsius initiative. It's quite clear we are not going to get there. And this continues. So somebody has to pay for this. And we are therefore going to continue advocating for climate justice and demanding climate justice. So we certainly need large amounts of cash. To some extent, we also need technical capacity and technical support, because if we're going to build back more resilient islands, if we're going to build back more resilient buildings, we also need to deploy technologies that help to reinforce that resilience. So I would certainly say large amounts of cash, large amounts of technology transfer, and technical capacity.
We've got to let you go, but I do want to ask one last quick question, because I know that you have a nightly address to the nation since this all happened at 9 p.m. What are you telling the people of Grenada right now whose lives have been completely ripped apart for them to have optimism? What's your message to them?
Well, I think that the starting point is if you're alive and you are not injured, that in and of itself is a reason to be grateful and to be thankful, because to some extent, the consequences of this storm could have been far more devastating. There is a part of us that feels to some extent that notwithstanding the devastation, that we've dodged a bullet. So I think from that point of view, we have to be grateful for being alive. But I think second, we are resilient people. We were struck by a very dangerous storm back in 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago in September. We rebuilt, we became stronger as a result. We learned many lessons. I think simply our response to this disaster, for example, is significantly better than it was 20 years ago. And so we have to continue living. We have no choice. This is the part of the world that we inhabit. It's a beautiful part of the world. It's a part that is worth fighting and preserving, not just for us, but for generations of people to come and for the rest of the world, including people who come from the big polluting industrialized countries. So we're not just fighting for ourselves, we're fighting for them so that they could enjoy peace of paradise. And in those circumstances, I think we have an obligation to continue rebuilding our communities, rebuilding our culture, rebuilding our way of life. We have a lot to offer to the world. And so it is important for us to remember that and we will get through this. It's still early days. It's a couple of days since the hurricane. Relief is on its way. We are providing the supplies. We do have a lot of friends and partners who are working with us, international donor agencies, and we feel confident that we will rebuild.
Prime Minister, as I said off the top, I know it's taken a little while for us to get connected, and that is understandable because you have been exceptionally busy over the past couple of days, but we appreciate you taking the time tonight. That is the Prime Minister of Grenada, Dickon Mitchell.